Jessica Radcliffe, a name that just a few years ago meant nothing to most of the world. But today, it's flooding social media feeds, whispered in dark corners of the internet, and debated in thousands of comment sections. Rumors are swirling, videos are trending, and the truth, well, the truth is far more chilling than the headlines. Jessica Radcliffe. This was a name you could search online and find almost nothing about. A few mentions in small marine magazines, some photos buried in old archives, nothing special. But now, that name is everywhere. It's the headline in viral videos, the whispered topic at dinner tables, and the fuel for thousands of debates online. People are arguing, sharing theories, replaying a clip that has shocked the world, and yet none of them truly know the full story. Before we go any deeper, let me pause here and ask you for one thing. If you're watching this right now, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on notifications, because this is not just another video you'll watch and forget. What you are about to hear is a story that will keep you thinking long after it ends. It's a journey that is dramatic, emotional, mysterious, and at times, almost too strange to believe. And trust me, you do not want to miss a single detail as we move from episode to episode. Over the next video, we will walk together through the life of Jessica Radcliffe, from her earliest days as a shy, curious little girl to her dream of working with marine animals, to the moment she met Blue, the dolphin that would change her life forever. You will hear about her triumphs, her struggles, the unshakable bond she built with Blue, and the strange warnings she ignored from people who had seen the danger before she did. You'll feel the joy of her greatest moments, the tension of her darkest days, and the cold shock of the incident that would seal her fate. And when we reach that final episode, you will face the same question the entire world is asking right now. Was what happened to Jessica a tragic accident? Or was there something more hidden beneath the waves? This is not just a story about one woman and one dolphin. This is about trust, obsession, and the thin line between love and danger. It is about how even the strongest bonds can be tested and broken. So buckle up, take a deep breath, because from this moment on, you are stepping into Jessica's world, a world where beauty meets danger, and where one moment can change everything forever. Jessica Radcliffe's story began on a quiet spring morning in a small coastal town, where the salty breeze and gentle crash of waves were as constant as the sunrise. Born to a fisherman father and a schoolteacher mother, she grew up with the ocean practically at her doorstep. Her earliest memories weren't of toys or playgrounds, but of the sound of gulls overhead and the shimmering horizon that seemed to stretch into forever. Even as a toddler, she would toddle toward the shore, laughing when the cool waves kissed her feet, as if the sea itself was welcoming her home. By the age of 5, Jessica had already shown a fascination with marine life. While other children played with dolls, she collected seashells, studied crabs under rocks, and asked endless questions about the creatures that lived beneath the water's surface. Her mother encouraged her curiosity, while her father taught her to swim before she could even ride a bike. Those swimming lessons were more than just a skill. They were the beginning of her deep bond with the water. When Jessica was 8, something remarkable happened. Her father took her to the local marine park for her birthday, and there, for the first time, she met a dolphin up close. Its name was Blue, a sleek, intelligent creature with eyes that seemed to look straight into her soul. As she reached out to touch Blue's smooth skin, she felt a strange spark of connection, something beyond the ordinary. That moment planted a seed in her young heart, one that would shape her future in ways no one could predict. Jessica's fascination grew into determination. She begged her parents to take her to the marine park every chance they got. And before long, the trainers there noticed her enthusiasm. They even let her help with small tasks, like tossing fish to the dolphins or cleaning their poolside area. She didn't care if it was work. To her, it was pure magic. By her teenage years, Jessica's life had already begun to revolve around the ocean. While her friends went to parties, she spent her evenings reading about marine biology and her weekends volunteering at the park. Blue, the dolphin she had met years before, had become more than just an animal she admired. It was her closest companion. Little did young Jessica know, the bond she was forming would one day be at the center of a story that the whole world would talk about. How a story filled with awe, fear, and questions that still linger today. By the time Jessica turned 18, she had already decided there was only one path for her: becoming a marine mammal trainer. She applied to Pacific Blue Ocean Park, the largest marine park in the region, and was accepted into their rigorous training program. It was more than just learning tricks. It was about understanding, patience, and building trust with animals that were as intelligent as they were unpredictable. Her first weeks were exhausting. The days began before sunrise, with hours of cleaning enclosures, preparing buckets of fish, and memorizing hand signals used for training. Most new recruits found it overwhelming, but Jessica thrived. Every task felt like a step toward the life she'd dreamed of since she was a child. And then one morning, she saw him again, Blue. The same dolphin from her childhood, older now, but still with that same playful gleam in his eyes. The head trainer, a man named Carl, noticed the way Blue reacted to her. "Looks like he remembers you," Carl said with a grin. "That's rare." From that day forward, Jessica was assigned to Blue's care. Training with Blue was unlike working with any other dolphin. He was smart, but also stubborn. If he didn't feel like performing, no amount of coaxing could change his mind. Jessica learned quickly that dolphins weren't robots. They had moods, preferences, and boundaries. She started experimenting, finding little ways to connect with him beyond the formal training. Sometimes she would just sit by the edge of the pool and hum softly, watching him circle beneath the water before surfacing to rest his head near her hand. Months turned into years, and Jessica's bond with Blue became legendary among the staff. They could perform entire routines with barely any visible cues, as if they were reading each other's thoughts. Tourists began to request the Jessica and Blue show by name, and her reputation as a gifted trainer grew. But beneath the applause and the smiling photos, Jessica began to notice something. Moments when Blue would act differently. His gaze would linger on her longer than usual. His playful nudges in the water became more forceful, almost testing her strength. And there were times, brief but unmistakable, when his usual calm would give way to something wilder, something she couldn't quite explain. Jessica didn't know it then, but she was beginning to see the first signs of the storm that would one day change her life forever. By her mid-20s, Jessica Radcliffe had become the face of Pacific Blue Ocean Park. Billboards along the highway featured her smiling next to Blue, the dolphin leaping in perfect arc above her. Travel magazines wrote articles about their unshakable bond, and school field trips were often scheduled just to watch their performances. For Jessica, it felt like she was living in a dream that demanded absolute dedication. The daily shows became second nature. Blue would leap through hoops, slap his tail to drench the front row, and twist in the air with an elegance that left the audience gasping. Jessica's timing was flawless. Her hand signals, so subtle that people swore the two were communicating telepathically. Off stage, she was still doing the less glamorous work, scrubbing tanks, monitoring water salinity, logging Blue's diet, but she didn't mind. She wanted to be involved in every part of his life. Over the years, Their relationship deepened in a way Jessica couldn't fully describe. Blue wasn't just a performing animal. He was her partner, her teammate, her closest friend. She trusted him completely, even in situations that would terrify a less experienced trainer. If a performance required her to dive underwater while he swam, tight circles around her, she never hesitated. But there was an undercurrent to their bond, subtle and easy to ignore at first. Sometimes during rehearsals, Blue would resist commands for no clear reason. He'd swim away mid-routine, vanish beneath the surface, and reappear with a sharp, echoing whistle. Carl would laugh it off, saying, "He just wants to keep you on your toes." Jessica would smile too, but she always felt a flicker of unease. One evening, after the crowds had left and the park was closing down, Jessica stayed late to feed Blue. The setting sun turned the water gold, and she leaned over the edge of the pool to drop fish into his mouth. Instead of eating, Blue surfaced slowly, watching her. His eye, dark, reflective, intelligent, held hers for a moment longer than usual. It was as if he was studying her, weighing something she couldn't see. "Long day, huh?" she whispered, tossing him another fish. But he didn't take it right away. He let it sink a little before catching it, almost like he wanted her to notice he was breaking routine. Jessica brushed it off. After all, animals had moods just like people. But in the months that followed, Blue's unpredictable moments became more frequent. He'd swim faster, closer, and with more force during certain stunts. A few times, she caught herself losing her footing on the pool platform from his splashes. It was nothing dangerous, yet. Still, in her gut, she felt something shifting. Something she couldn't quite name. The year 2015 was supposed to be Jessica's most triumphant yet. She had recently been promoted to lead trainer at Pacific Blue Ocean Park, the very place where she had first walked in as a nervous 19-year-old. The dolphins seemed to love her more than ever, and the crowds were larger than they had been in years. But behind the curtain of applause and flashing cameras, Jessica's life was taking on a darker shade. A video began to circulate online, not of a performance, but of a late-night training session. The grainy clip, shot from an unknown phone, showed Jessica in the dimly lit dolphin pool, whispering to her favorite dolphin, Apollo, and making strange hand movements that were unlike any official training commands. Some said she was simply bonding with the dolphin in her own way. Others claimed it was ritualistic and unnerving. It didn't help that the footage ended abruptly with Apollo thrashing in the water, before disappearing below the surface for several seconds. While Jessica brushed it off as just playtime, online forums started to buzz with darker interpretations. Rumors began to multiply. Strange stories of dolphins becoming restless around her, of eerie sounds echoing through the park at night, of Jessica sometimes staying at the facility long after midnight. Jessica, in interviews, laughed nervously when asked about the midnight dolphin sessions, but her tone couldn't fully hide a shadow of unease. What no one knew, except Jessica, was that Apollo had started behaving differently after that night. He was less responsive during public shows and more aggressive toward the other dolphins, forcing Jessica to work with him alone. Her colleagues whispered, but no one dared to challenge her directly. The park management, keen to avoid controversy, chose silence over confrontation. Yet the mystery surrounding her deepened. A few months later, a tourist claimed to have heard Jessica speaking in a language that wasn't English while leaning over Apollo's pool. The claim was laughed off in the press, but the internet held on to it, weaving it into an evolving conspiracy that painted Jessica as someone with a connection beyond the natural to the dolphins. By the end of the year, Jessica's name was no longer just that of a celebrated trainer. It had become a symbol of intrigue, a figure surrounded by whispers that refused to die. And the strangest part? Jessica herself seemed to stop trying to deny them. By 2017, the whispers around Jessica Radcliffe had hardened into a kind of urban legend. Visitors came to Pacific Blue not just for the dolphin shows, but for a chance to catch a glimpse of the mysterious woman who, according to rumor, could talk to the sea. The park's marketing team quietly leaned into the intrigue. Posters of Jessica with Apollo appeared across the city, her hand stretched out toward the dolphin as if sharing a secret. But for those who worked closely with her, the atmosphere was anything but magical. Apollo's unpredictability had grown worse. There were incidents, small at first, that never reached the public. A sudden snap of his jaws at a trainer's foot. A hard shove that sent a trainee splashing into the pool. Jessica always stepped in, calming him in seconds. But the pattern was undeniable. One evening, after the park had closed and the last of the visitors had left, Jessica stayed behind for another of her late-night sessions. The maintenance crew, tired and eager to clock out, worked quietly on the far side of the facility. In the moonlight streaming through the skylights, they could see her silhouette by the pool's edge. She was speaking in a soft, rhythmic cadence, not English, not any language they recognized. The dolphin circled beneath her, slow and deliberate, like a shadow in the water. At one point, Apollo rose, touching her hand with his rostrum and letting out a long, low whistle that sent shivers down the spines of the crew watching from afar. The next morning, one of those maintenance workers quit without explanation. Another swore he'd heard a faint echo of that same low whistle in the parking lot hours later. Management dismissed it all as stress and overwork, but the unease was spreading. Jessica, however, seemed more alive than ever. In interviews, she spoke with poetic confidence about the shared mind between humans and dolphins, about a bridge no one else can see. When pressed, she would smile and say, "Some things aren't meant to be explained." Then, in late autumn, an incident during a live show changed everything. As Jessica stood at the platform, Apollo broke from his routine and surged toward her, lifting her into the air on his snout before tossing her backward into the water. The crowd gasped, unsure if it was part of the act. Jessica surfaced moments later, smiling and waving. But her eyes, those who saw closely, held a flicker of something no one could name. The incident should have been the moment Pacific Blue management intervened. But Jessica's perfect public recovery, the smile, the wave, the bow to the crowd, gave them an excuse to downplay it. The newspapers framed it as a daring stunt, and ticket sales spiked. Behind closed doors, however, the head trainer cornered Jessica in the break room. "You're losing control of him," he said, voice low but edged with frustration. Jessica didn't argue, didn't defend herself. She simply looked at him with that calm, unreadable gaze and said, "I'm not losing control. He's learning." The words lingered in his mind long after she left the room. From then on, the shows grew stranger. Apollo began to anticipate Jessica's cues without her giving them. Sometimes he performed tricks she hadn't requested at all. Elaborate spins, sudden dives, sharp tail slaps against the water, all timed perfectly to her movements, as if the two shared an unspoken script. Visitors started recording these odd performances and uploading them online. Clips went viral under titles like, "Trainer and Dolphin in Perfect Sync," and "Is this dolphin reading her mind?" But not every moment was picture perfect. Trainers began avoiding pool sessions with Apollo altogether. One junior trainer swore that, while cleaning the platform, he felt something brush his leg under the water. Not the playful nudge of a dolphin, but a deliberate grip that squeezed before letting go. He never returned to the tank. Jessica, meanwhile, spent more time alone with Apollo, sometimes long after the park had closed. Security footage, later leaked, showed her lying flat on the platform at 2 a.m., her head inches from the water, whispering for nearly 20 minutes straight. Apollo floated motionless beside her the entire time, his eye fixed on hers. Then came the winter show. The arena was packed, the lights bright, the music loud. Jessica stepped onto the platform, the crowd chanting her name. Apollo leapt in a dazzling arc, spraying the front rows with glittering water. The audience roared. But midway through the act, he stopped, sinking beneath the surface. The water went still. Seconds passed. Jessica called his name once, twice. No response. Then, with a violent splash, he exploded upward, not toward the audience, but toward her. The impact sent her sprawling onto the wet platform. Microphones skidding into the pool. The trainers on standby froze. The crowd erupted in confused laughter, thinking it part of the show. Jessica sat up slowly, water streaming down her hair and face. She didn't look shaken. She looked satisfied. Jessica's days after the incident felt like a slow-motion nightmare. The once bright and vibrant world around her seemed muted, as if someone had turned down the volume on life. News channels replayed the same clip over and over. The moment her dolphin suddenly turned on her, social media was an even harsher battlefield. While some defended her, claiming that animals could act unpredictably, others spread wild conspiracy theories about her relationship with the dolphin. Whispers became accusations, and accusations became sensational headlines. She would wake up each morning to the sound of her phone, buzzing endlessly, messages from old colleagues, journalists begging for an exclusive, and strangers sending hate or pity. Jessica stopped answering her phone entirely. Even going outside felt dangerous. A simple trip to the grocery store turned into an ambush of camera, flashes, and probing questions. Her safe haven, the ocean, no longer felt welcoming. The dolphin she once considered her closest companion was now kept far from her, guarded by park officials and marine experts. Her home became her fortress. Curtains stayed drawn. The only sounds were the occasional gulls outside and the faint hum of her refrigerator. Sometimes, she would replay old videos of herself performing with the dolphin, moments filled with laughter, tricks, and an unshakable bond. Tears would blur her vision, and she would shut the laptop abruptly, unable to face the contrast between then and now. Rumors kept growing. Some claimed Jessica had secretly trained the dolphin to be aggressive for a publicity stunt. Others went as far as to suggest she had been cruel behind the scenes, a claim that cut her deeply because she had devoted her life to protecting marine life. Every attempt to defend herself seemed to add fuel to the fire. Then came the most unexpected blow, a leaked video from years ago. It wasn't damning, but it was enough to twist public opinion further. The clip showed Jessica talking to the dolphin in an intense tone after a failed routine. What viewers didn't know was that she had been worried about the dolphin's health that day. Not angry, but in the hands of the internet, the truth didn't matter. Jessica knew she couldn't stay silent forever. If she wanted to reclaim her name and tell the real story, she would have to face the same crowd that now seemed determined to destroy her. The question was, did she still have the strength to do it? From the shadows of the backstage, a familiar figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, and carrying the kind of presence that made the audience collectively lean forward. It was Daniel Ross, the senior trainer who had worked beside Jessica for over a decade at Pacific Blue Ocean Park. Jessica's heart pounded so loudly she was certain the microphones could pick it up. She hadn't spoken to Daniel since the day after the incident, when his guarded silence had told her everything she needed to know, that he, too, had been pressured into avoiding contact with her. The host smiled like a magician, revealing the final trick. Daniel was there the day it all happened, they said, and he has something he wants to share with you, and with all of us. Daniel stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Jessica. The audience was dead silent. Jessica, he began, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of emotion. I've kept quiet for too long. That day, you weren't at fault. The truth is, management knew the dolphin had been showing signs of stress for weeks. They told us to keep performing anyway. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jessica blinked, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. Daniel went on, explaining how safety protocols had been ignored in the name of ticket sales, how Jessica had raised concerns more than once, and how the higher-ups had silenced them both. I should have spoken up sooner, Daniel said, his voice cracking. I'm sorry I left you to take all the blame. Jessica's throat tightened. For months she had dreamed of anyone, publicly standing beside her, and now, here it was, unfolding under the blinding studio lights. Thank you, she managed to whisper, her voice shaking. The host turned to Jessica. This changes things, doesn't it? Jessica took a slow breath, steadying herself. It doesn't erase what happened, she said softly, but it matters. It matters that the truth is finally being heard. The audience erupted into applause. Not the hesitant kind from before, but a warm, thundering wave of approval. Jessica felt her shoulders lighten, as if the invisible weight she had been carrying was finally beginning to lift. After the cameras stopped rolling, Daniel stepped close. You don't have to go through this alone anymore, he told her. For the first time in a long while, Jessica believed him. Outside the studio, the air felt fresher, the world a little brighter. She didn't know what would come next, but for the first time since the accident, Jessica Radcliffe wasn't just surviving. She was ready to live again,